Laurie Lee was born in 1914 in a small village in Gloucestershire.
After many jobs as a clerk, a builder's labourer, even fighting against the fascists in the Spanish Civil War,
Lee became a journalist and a scriptwriter, and eventually a full-time writer of poetry and stories.
He died in 1997 in the same village in which he was born.
His autobiographical novel Cider with Rosie, published in 1959, has become one of the UK's most popular books and is frequently studied in schools.
It has often been performed on stage and on television in a dramatised version.
We are presenting here some extracts from the novel that depict Laurie's school days and memories during the period after the First World War.
Cider with Rosie is a vivid memoir of childhood in a remote Cotswold village, Slade, a timeless place before electricity or mass travel, yet hovering on the verge of change.
Growing up amongst the fields and the woods and the characters of the place, Laurie Lee depicts a world that is both immediate and real, and yet belongs to a now distant past.
The village school at the time provided all the instruction we were likely to ask for.
The school was a small stone barn, divided by a wooden partition into 2 rooms.
The infants
and the big ones.
there was one dame teacher and perhaps a young girl assistant. Every child in the valley crowding in there until he was 14 years old. Then was presented to the working field or factory with nothing in his head more burdensome than a jumbled list of wars and a dreamy image of the world's geography.
12 inches 1 foot, 3 feet make a yard, 14 pounds make a stone, 8 stone 100 weight. 12 inches 1 foot, 3 feet make a yard, 14 pounds make a stone, 8 stone 100 weight. The school when I came to it was at its peak.
Wild boys and girls from outlying farms and half-hidden hovels swept down each day, bringing with them strange oaths and odours, quaint garments and curious pies.
The morning came without any warning, when my sisters surrounded me, wrapped me in scarves, thrust a cap on my head and stuffed a baked potato in my hand. What's this?
You're starting school today.
No, I ain't. I'm stopping home.
Now come on, Lol. You're a big boy now.
I ain't.
You are.
No, I ain't.
Boys who don't go to school get put into boxes and turned into rabbits and chopped up Sundays.
I arrived at the school just 3 feet tall and fatly wrapped in scarves.
The playground roared like a rodeo. Old boots, ragged stockings, torn trousers and skirts went skating and skidding round me. The rabble closed in. I was encircled.
Grit flew in my face like shrapnel. Tall girls with frizzled hair and huge boys with sharp elbows began to prod me with hideous interest. They plucked my scarves, spun me round like a top, screwed my nose and stole my potato.
I was rescued at last by a gracious lady
the 16-year-old junior teacher.
who boxed a few ears and dried my eyes and led me off to the infants.
I spent that first day picking holes in paper and then went home in a smouldering temper.
What's the matter, Lol? Didn't he like school then?
They never gave me the present.
Present? What present?
They told me they'd give me a present.
Well now, I'm sure they didn't.
They did. They said, "You're Laurie Lee, ain't you? Will you sit there for the present?" I sat there all day, but they never gave me a present. I ain't going back there again.
But after a week, I felt like a veteran and grew as ruthless as anyone else.
If someone stole my baked potato, I simply swiped someone else's apple.
The infants' room was packed with toys, such as I'd never seen before.
Coloured shapes.
And rolls of clay.
Stuffed birds.
And figures to paint.
And a frame of counting beads which our young teacher played like a harp. This tiny whitewashed infant's room was a brief but cosy anarchy.
In that short time allowed us, we played and wept.
Broke things.
Fell asleep.
Cheat the teacher.
Discover the things we could do to each other. and exhaled our last guiltless days.
My desk companions were two blonde girls whose names and bodies were to haunt and distract me for the next 15 years of my life. Poppy and Jo were limpet chums. They sat holding hands all day.
Vera was another I studied and liked. She was lonely, fuzzy, and short. I felt a curious compassion for Stumpy Vera, and it was through Vera that I got in trouble and received the first public shock of my life.
How it happened was simple, and I was innocent, so it seemed. Vera came up to me in the playground one morning, and she held her face close to mine.
I had a stick in my hand, so I hit her on the
Ow!
head. Her hair was springy, so I hit her again, and watched her mouth open with a yowl.
To my surprise, a commotion broke out around me.
Cries of scandal from the older girls. Exclamations of horror mixed with Vera's sobbing wails.
I was intrigued that by wielding a beach stick I could cause such a stir. So I hit her again, without spite or passion, then walked off to try something else.
Angry faces surrounded me, very red, all spitting and scolding.
Horrid boy!
Oh, Vera!
Little monster!
We're going to tell the teacher about you.
Something was wrong. I began to feel vaguely uneasy. I had only hit Vera on her wiry black hair, and now everybody was shouting at me. I ran and hid, but they hunted me down. Two big, righteous girls hauled me out by the ears.
You're wanted in the big room for hitting Vera.
You're in trouble!
So, I was dragged to the big room, where I'd never been before, and under the savage eyes of the older children, the teacher gave me a scalding lecture. I was confused by now, and shaking with guilt. I had learned my first lesson, that I could not hit Vera, no matter how fuzzy her hair was.
And something else, too. That the summons to the big room comes almost always as a complete surprise, and for a crime that one has forgotten.
12 inches 1 foot, 3 feet make a yard, 14 pounds make a stone, 8 stone 100 weights.
I was a natural infant, content to serve out my time in the infant's room, cutting out figures from paper, making snakes from clay, drawing suns on the walls, idling through the milky days.
But my time was running out. Suddenly I found that I could count up to 100. I could write my name in both capital and small letters, and I'd subtract certain numbers from each other. I'd even succeeded in subtracting Poppy from Jo when the call came down from on high. Infant no longer, I was being moved up.
The big room was ready for me. I found there, in the big room, a world both adult and tough, with long desks and inkwells.
Strange maps on the walls.
Huge boys in heavy boots.
Scratching pens.
Groans of labour.
And sharp and sudden persecutions.
Gone forever were the infant days. Now I was alone and unprotected, faced by a struggle which required new techniques, where one made pacts and split them, where one made friends and betrayed them, and where one fought for a place near the stove.
The stove was the tub of warmth to which we cleaved during the long 7 months of winter. It was made of cast iron and had a noisy mouth which rattled coke and breathed out fumes. It was decorated by a tortoise labelled slow but sure, and in winter the tortoise turned red hot.
My first days in the big room were spent in regrets for the young teacher I had left behind in the infant's room, and the voice of her sleepy love. Clearly, the big room boasted no such comforts. Miss B, the head teacher, to whom I was now delivered, was about as physically soothing as a wooden rake.
She had a bunched and punitive body, and the school had christened her as
Crabby B.
She had a sour yellow look, hair coiled in earphones.
and the skin and voice of a turkey.
We were all afraid of the goblin Miss B. She spied.
She cried.
She crouched.
She pounced.
She was a terror.
Each morning war was declared. No one knew who would catch it next. We stood to attention, half crippled in our desks, till Miss B walked in. She whacked the walls with her ruler and fixed us with her squinting eye.
Good morning, children.
Good morning, teacher.
I said, good morning, children.
Good morning, teacher.
The greeting was like a rattling of swords. Then she would scowl at the floor and begin to growl.
12 inches.
12 inches 1 foot, 3 feet make a yard, 14 pounds make a stone, 8 stone 100 weight.
I believe I said 12 inches.
12 inches 1 foot, 3 feet make a yard, 14 pounds make a stone, 8 stone 100 weight.
Scarcely had we mumbled the last line before Crabby coiled, uncoiled and sprang, knocking some poor boy sideways, one seldom knew why.
Shuffling your feet, playing with the desk, smirking at that miserable girl Betty. I will not have it. I will not have it, I say. I repeat, I will not have it.
We did not much approve of Crabby B.
Though she was certainly responsible for our excellent reflexes.
Apart from this, her teaching was not memorable. School in my day seemed to be designed simply to keep us children out of the fresh air and to keep us away from following the normal pursuits of the fields.
So, while the seasons passed, we sat locked in our prison, our backs turned on the valley.
Then there came the inevitable day when rebellion raised its standard, when the tension was broken and a hero emerged.
Spadge Hopkins it was.
And I must say, we were all surprised. Spadge Hopkins was one of those heavy, full-grown boys, thick-legged, red-fisted, bursting with flesh, designed for the great outdoors.
He was nearly 14 by then, and physically out of scale.
The sight of him, squeezed into his tiny desk, was worse than a bullock in ballet shoes.
He wasn't much of a scholar. He muttered and groaned as he worked.
Crabby B took pleasure in goading him, forcing him to read aloud, or asking him sudden, unintelligible questions, so he would blush and stumble.
Eventually, the great day came.
It was a day of shimmering summer.
Crabby B was at her sourest, and Spadge Hopkins had had enough.
He began to writhe in his tiny wooden desk, rolling his eyes, kicking his boots, and muttering.
She'd better look out. Crabby B, she'd better look out.
Then he threw down his pen.
Sod it all.
And where do you think you're going, young man?
That's none of your business.
We shivered with pleasure at his defiance as Spadge leisurely made for the door.
Sit down this instant. I won't have it.
Then Crabby sprang towards him like a yellow cat, spitting and crawling with rage. She caught Spadge in the doorway, but Spadge held her hand in his great red fist while she struggled.
Someone, come and help me, please.
But nobody moved. We just watched.
We saw Spadge lift her up and place her on top of the cupboard. Then he walked out the door and away.
Ta-ta.
There was a moment of silence.
Then we all laid down our books and pens, and we began to stamp on the floor in unison.
Crabby stayed where she was, on top of the cupboard, drumming her heels and weeping. We expected some terrible retribution to follow, but nothing happened at all. Not even Spadge was called to account. He was simply left alone.
From that day, Crabby B never spoke to Spadge again, nor crossed his path, nor denied him anything at all. He perched idly at his desk, knees almost up to his chin, whistling in a world of his own. He was free to come and go and to take time off as he pleased.
But we never rebelled again.
Things changed.
Crabby B was suddenly replaced by a new head teacher
Miss Wardley.
from Birmingham. This lady was something quite new in our lives. She wore sharp glass jewellery which winked as she walked and sounded her G's like gongs.
She was fond of singing, and she was fond of birds, and she encouraged in us the study of both. But she didn't approve of me much.
Fat and lazy.
That was the name she called me. After my midday dinner of baked cabbage and bread, I would often nod off at my desk.
Wake up, fat and lazy.
She also took exception to my constant sniffing,
Go out into the road and have a good blow, and don't come back till you're clear.
so I'd sit outside on the wall for hours, indignant and thunderous, sniffing louder than ever. I wouldn't go back in until a boy was sent to fetch me.
Our village school was poor and crowded, but in the end I relished every day of it. It had a lively reek of steaming life.
Boys' boots.
Girls' hair.
Stoves and sweat.
Blue ink!
White chalk and shavings.
We learnt nothing abstract or tenuous there.
Just simple facts.
Through the dead hours of the morning,
Through the long afternoons.
we chanted away at our tables.
1 2 is 2, 2 2s are 4, 3 2s are 6, 4 2s are 8, 5 2s are 10. 1 2 is 1 foot, 3 2s are make a yard, 14 pounds make a stone, 8 stone 100 weight, 5 2s are 10. Twice 2 is 4, 1 God is love, 1 Lord is kings, 1 King is George, 5 George is 10. Even now I can recall that classroom, Miss Wardley on her high desk throne.
The bubbling stove, its chink of red fire. The old map of the world as dark as tea.
Dead flowers in jam jars on the windowsills.
The cupboard yawning with dog-eared books.
The boys.
The girls.
The slow, fat ones.
The quick, bony ones. Giants and louts.
Angels and squinters.
Walter Carey.
Bill Timbrell.
Spadge Hopkins.
Clergy green.
Sam and Sixpence.
Poppy and Joe.
We were ugly and beautiful.
Scruffulous.
Warted.
Ringworm.
Scabby at the knees.
We were noisy.
Intolerant.
Stupid and superstitious.
Scratching and licking.
Chewing pen.
Whispering jokes.
A titter of tickling. Staring at the walls in a daydream.
You're sniffing again, fat and lazy. Go out into the road and have a good blow, and don't come back till you're clear.
I stamp out noisily into a swoop of fresh air and a musical surge of birds. All around me now is the free green world, with Mrs. Bird hanging out her washing in her back garden. I take stock of myself for a moment.
Of course, I don't really belong with that lot back there in the classroom. I know I'm something special. A young king, perhaps, secretly placed here in order to mix with the commoners. There's clearly a mystery about my birth. I feel so unique and majestic. One day I know my secret will be told. A coach of footmen will appear suddenly at our cottage, and my mother will weep. The family will stand very solemn and respectful, and I shall drive off to take up my throne. I'll be generous, not proud at all. I won't put my brothers in dungeons, rather feed them on cakes and jellies, and I'll provide all my sisters with handsome princes, little though they deserve it.
I return to the classroom and Miss Wardley scowls at me.
She'll have to curtsy when I'm king.
Sniffing again, fat and lazy. I don't know what to do with you.
Sometimes there was a beating, which nobody minded except an occasional red-faced mother.
Sometimes a man came and took out our teeth.
My mam says you ain't to take out any biggins.
Shut up, you little horror.
Sometimes the squire would pay us a visit, hand out prizes and make a speech.
And sometimes an inspector arrived on a bicycle, counted our heads and then departed.
Miss Wardley was patient, but we weren't very bright.
Our books showed a squalor of blotches and scratches, as though monkeys were being taught to write. Write a poem on one of the following.
A kitten!
Fairies!
My holidays.
An old tinker.
A sea rack!
What's that, miss?
You're a grub, Walter Carey. You have the wits of a hen. And you, Bill Timbrell, are a great, hulking lout of an oaf. You can just stay behind and do it again. You can all stay behind, the lot of you.
But when lessons grew too tiresome, we had plenty of ways of avoiding them.
Please, miss, I've got to stay home tomorrow. Help my mum with the pigs. You see,
I can't do this.
my
so
dad
miss.
is sick.
You see,
never
miss,
learned
I had
this
my
this
book
one.
stolen by that Carrie Burdock. She
Please,
pinched my
miss, I
book.
got
Please, miss, I can't do this test. I can't write. I've stung the horseflies. Sell me. I tried to run away,
Please,
but this
miss,
stuff was awful.
I've got to go to my uncle's funeral tomorrow, so I won't be in lessons.
We forged notes from our mothers, or made ourselves sick with berries, or we claimed to be relations of the corpse at funerals.
The church was only next door.
It was easy to start wailing when the hearse passed by.
Oh, miss, it's my auntie, miss. I need to go and say goodbye to her.
Miss, it's my cousin Wilf. Can I go, please, miss? Can I go?
Many a coffin was followed to its grave by a struggle of long-faced children, pinched, solemn, raggedly dressed, and all complete strangers to the astonished bereaved.
And so, our schoolwork was done.
The narrow school was just a conveyor belt, along which the short years drew us.
We entered the door marked infants and moved gradually through the big room, and we were then handed back to the world outside.
We moved to bigger desks.
Miss Wardley began to spoil us as though we were dying.
During playtime, we walked around, gravely patronising the younger creatures.
There is no more to be done.
No more to be learned.
Goodbye, my dears, and jolly good luck. Don't forget to come back and see us sometime.
She gave each one of us a final sad glance.
But she knew we would never return.
Now I remember back to the first day I arrived at the school. Just 3 feet tall and wrapped in scarves. Playground roaring like a rodeo, a rabble closing in. Grit flying in my face like shrapnel. Tall girls with frizzled hair and huge boys with sharp elbows, prodding me, plucking my scarves, spinning me round like a top and stealing my potato. I think back to the 16-year-old junior teacher who rescues and meets me off to the infants, where I spent that first day picking holes in paper, and go home in a smouldering temper because they didn't give me the present.
You're Laurie Lee, ain't you? Well, you just sit there for the present.
I sat there all day, but they never gave me a present. I ain't going back there again.